So, Donald Trump has come out and said that the Soviet Union was right to invade Afghanistan on the grounds that terrorists were attacking the Soviet Union. This is astonishing, and it is astonishing, and yet it's in keeping with Donald Trump's track record. I cannot recall any time, certainly in my life, and probably never in American history, where a single incumbent of the White House has said so many stupid, ignorant, inflammatory things, and he's not even 2 years into office. I mean, Trump's sheer ignorance about the world is astonishing, and only the most blind, die-hard Trump supporter would not be concerned by this. So let's just look at the situation regarding his statement. Um, Incidentally, President Ghani has what a clarification on that. 1979, following the Tsar Revolution in Afghanistan, the Soviet Union invaded, trying to make Afghanistan part of the Soviet Communist Empire. That was known, it became known as the Soviet Union's Vietnam. Over 10,000 Russian troops were killed, Soviet troops, I should say, were killed. It was a bloody quagmire, and it is something that Russia today, RT, will never talk about. The fact that it was the Soviet Union really played a very large part in destabilizing that country in the first place, um, and ultimately leading to the religious hardliners and the Taliban getting into power. RT loves to point fingers at the West for the intervention after 2001, after 9/11, but it was Russia's predecessor state, the Soviet Union, um, that was responsible for creating a lot of that instability. And for an American president to turn round and be an apologist for communist aggression is astonishing. I mean, this almost makes Gerald Ford's statement look intelligent when Ford famously said there is no Soviet domination in Eastern Europe. And there's been some extraordinary statements by American presidents over the years, but this is a man who just comes out with statements like this every few weeks, every few months. I mean, my goodness, what a complete and utter disgrace this man is. I mean, some might say, oh, it's just words, it doesn't mean anything. I don't agree with that. I think it demonstrates a dangerous lack of awareness of the outside world. And when you are arguably the most powerful man in the world, or at least in the top three, and you demonstrate such extreme ignorance, it's frightening. I mean, I remember when Bush 43 was in office, everyone said he was stupid, and he did come out with a few gems himself. But Bush's statements were more like the village idiot or he sometimes mixed up words. And with Trump, this is willful ignorance. It's a callous indifference to just how gratuitous his words are. And I would say offensive, but then the Trump supporters get into, oh, you're being politically correct. Here's the thing, there must be many, many, many conservatives and people on the right who really take issue with an American president praising a communist. I mean, if this isn't double standard, if it isn't tantamount to stabbing your own country in the back, I don't know what is. And the disgrace of it is Trump had the audacity for years to question, in a racist way, Barack Obama's birth. And it was racist because he continued even after Obama proved that he was born in Hawaii. There was without question racist tones to that. So I think Trump is an absolute disgrace. I think he's probably the worst president ever. And I'm not saying that as someone ignorant of American history. because a lot of people, that gets thrown around a lot. So and so is the worst president, and that's people talking about modern history. I mean, in American history, I'm including James Buchanan, Franklin Pierce. I'm including all those very sloppy presidents in the mid 19th century. I think Trump may be one of the very worst, if not the worst ever, because this man is so reckless, so unpredictable in the sort of things that he comes out with. He is putting American sovereignty at serious risk. The Russia thing is very far from settled. And I think that we're at a point now where the only people who are going to keep making excuses for Trump are his hardcore supporters. And I can see they are very passionate, they're very zealous. Um, there are three parties in America today: there's the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and there's the Trump faction. I really think Trump is, they talk about he's cleaning up the swamp. What this man is doing is making the American presidency a laughingstock. But he is a force of his own. This isn't Trump acting as part of the United States government. This is Trump being Trump. I mean, someone needs to get rid of the man's Twitter account. It's a weapon of mass destruction. And his supporters will say, "Oh, you're biased, and what about all the good things he's done?" I'll be fair where fairness is due, but they need to stop being so brainwashed by their blind praise and just for once recognize that there are certain things this man says that cannot be rationally condoned by any thinking person. In what way was the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan a good thing? And incidentally, once again, it's factually wrong. The Soviet Union wasn't experiencing terrorist attacks from Afghanistan pre 1979. Pan Islamism was a much smaller force in the world today, the world then, than it is today. I mean, there's no evidence that I've heard of. I mean, if someone could prove me wrong, um, that there was any sort of motivation for the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan other than expanding the communist empire. I mean, Soviet troops went in there and they urinated in mosques. They killed civilians. And it became basically the Soviet Union's Vietnam, something RT will never ever talk about. Um, Trump's coziness with Putin, the fact this is a man who is perfectly fine with insulting the British, the Canadians, and other Western allies, but will not directly confront Putin is pathetic. Now, America does, and I think what's happening in the American power dynamic is a major disconnect between Trump in the executive office and the American government, his cabinet, basically. Because we have seen hardline approaches that I welcome. For example, after the Skripal case, America acted very robustly and it expelled lots of Russian personnel. That was a good thing. And yet, Trump himself gives the impression that Putin is the last person on earth he wants to criticize. So there are very real questions with this. I think what's actually happening is a disconnect between the president and just about everybody else. I mean, who in the White House uh, uh, really is that close to Trump? Pompeo? Well, I thought Mattis was. He's gone. Pence, I'm not sure what position Pence is in. I think he's kind of acting as the sort of stable guy, the stabilizer of this administration. But I don't know. I just I don't know how Trump fanboys and fangirls can justify this one. I mean, insulting the African continent, saying they're shithole countries. Okay, let's look at that. People say, "Oh, but it's true." Just because it's true doesn't mean the president of the United States should plaster it all over the place and say they're shithole countries. Why not these just struggling countries or countries with big challenges? They have severe poverty, corruption. Fine, talk about all those things, but shithole countries. What sort of world leader comes out with rhetoric like that? There are others, okay, there are others. Duterte in the Philippines, um, Erdogan in Turkey. Bolsonaro in Brazil now. But Trump has popularized this, and I don't think it should be normalized. People could say CNN is biased, and it is. It certainly is. But there comes a point where you can no longer say that every single criticism of Trump is fake news. I mean, this is a man who insults Western allies, makes excuses for dictators, plays the narrative of the Russian state media. Uh, I mean, he is doing more damage to the West than even the Russians are in some ways. And Trump supporters just can't see it because they have it in their mind that anytime someone criticizes it, oh, you're part of the liberal elite. I really hope this man doesn't win re-election because the direction that he is going is not creating a better world. This is a man who is appeasing dictators. This is a man who is, being used by dictators. I think as much as I wanted to be optimistic about the Korea Summer Summit last year, and as much as it was remarkable scenes, I think Trump was used. I think Kim Jong Il has no intention. Excuse me, Kim Jong Un has no intention of any sort of credible reforms whatsoever, and I think he's just biding time. I think Putin is far smarter than Trump. I'm not talking in terms of business, but actually, that's a point. People say, oh, well, Trump's a great businessman, so he must be smart. Actually, he had a lot of failed businesses. I think Trump is a man baby. I think he's a baby stuck in a man's body. This is a man who is 72, going on 7. And I think he's a complete disgrace to the office he holds. He is an embarrassment to the Western world. Um, and anything he does achieve, I mean, people say, okay, look at the American economy, it's on the rebound. Good. I'll give him credit for that. But the uncertainty that he is creating in terms of power alliances, in terms of the things that he is saying, in terms of his attitude to a whole host of problems, should really raise question marks. And there's a very long track record of Trump coming out with extraordinary statements. People say he tells it like it is. No, he doesn't. He flip flops. He flip flops on a very wide range of issues. I mean, this guy is not sincere. This guy is not someone who can clean up the swamp. Trump is a walking insult to the office he holds. And I think he is definitely the worst president in my lifetime. As for diplomacy, it's virtually non existent. Whenever he's making statements that are kind of diplomatic, what does he do? He comes out with some Twitter rant that just clouds over it. So his supporters say he's getting a bad time from the press, but he's not exactly helping matters, is he? When he comes out with stuff like this, and I have no doubt he'll say, "Oh, it's fake news, CNN spinning it." But there's only I know the media can distort things, but Trump is his own worst enemy, and his supporters just don't see it.